But we know that the real challenge is not only to model the world we dream about among the board of trustees, the boards of directors and staff, but in our congregational life and in the life of the many other institutions that together make up our faith. May it be so this morning. Amen.
Hello, my name is Rose, and I light this chalice for the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
Thank you, Rose. And now, please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing when the Spirit says do, and stay standing for our words of covenant. And then please join me in the words of the covenant, which should appear on the screen. Goodwill is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And please be seated and join me as we sing our children out to their classrooms.
Good morning. Are we on?
Yes.
This morning, I came prepared to talk about the growth of our movement, my calling to help with that growth, I know you support it. And then some of our friends and some people who don't know they need to be our friends decided that they needed to disrupt life in Charlottesville with some real old nasty stuff. So we're just going to take a moment, because if we don't acknowledge that, we can't go on into talking about where we want to go as a movement this morning. If you came into our movement a little more conservative about any issue, could you raise your hand? So we're full of diehard liberals, huh? Well, I raised my hand because I was brought up on the other side of not Atlanta, Kansas City. Yeah, I'm at home. And I went to some good schools, but they were pretty conservative. And I believed some of that stuff, even when it didn't benefit me. And I want to say it was because of where I was at the time, that we had a liberal place for me to worship, that I found it, and I am going to give credit to God for helping me find the freedom that existed within our walls. Part of our growth, y'all, is that we will be a loving presence for some folks who are hurting so bad that they are accepting stuff that doesn't make any sense about where we are in the world today. One young man at the march in Charlottesville, they asked him, "Why are you marching?" He said, "Oh, it sounds fun to say white lives matter." He hasn't examined what he's talking about. I'll guarantee if we were to go further with questioning him, we'll find out that his life is not where he wants it to be. Because if it were, you wouldn't have to march against anybody else. Huh?
Right.
And the world we want will include some of those folks. It already does, if y'all are honest about Thanksgiving dinner. And when you get ready to go to the Royals game, because you make sure the slightly more liberal cousin is sitting between y'all. We're going to take a moment of silence, because for some folks this morning, they are grieving the loss of a father, an uncle, a grandfather, a dad, a friend, a colleague in their work, because we lost 2 police officers in the helicopters. We don't even know why. There are 19 people who are in the hospital trying to recuperate from a 40-mile-an-hour car that came into their crowd. And one family is grieving the loss of their mom, their daughter, their female relative who was killed by that car. She was there in the name of peace and lost her life. As we go into the silence, and there's going to be a little music playing underneath, I want you to think about those families. Think about how loving you can be to somebody who doesn't agree with you. I'm not proposing this morning that we're already at forgiveness, because forgiveness is a process, and I'm not going to sit up here and lie to you and say that I have forgiven them. I'm going to work on it, but I'm not there yet. Gracious, holy presence, presence that has been a father to us who didn't have a father, and a mother when we lost our mothers. This morning, we come hurting, stunned, shocked by what we're capable of. This morning we come needing healing from each other and from the source much greater than all of us combined. We come needing love that we've never felt before. Love that helps us stand up to oppression. Love that helps us be greater than we have ever been in the presence of ignorance and fear. And we ask forgiveness for having been fearful and ignorant ourselves. May we never make someone else's life less than. May we be that source that can bring us all into peace and harmony someday. Many have come with a message of this love and this peace, and we have destroyed them. We have hurt them. In their names, may our hearts be changed, and may we someday know that love. Amen.
Good morning. I'm Charlotte Davison, and I'm the Secretary of Grandparents Against Gun Violence. Thank you very much for offering me the opportunity to talk to you today. An unlocked gun is an accident waiting to happen. That is why Grandparents Against Gun Violence is kicking off a new initiative called Lock It for Love. Lock It for Love, where we hand out free gun locks to gun owners in the Kansas City area to prevent death and injury caused by guns kept in homes. This program was started in St. Louis, where in the past couple of years they've given out 850 locks. Before we began Lock It for Love, we wanted to make sure it would work in our community. And so we consulted with the health department, the mayor, the city council, Kansas City Police Department, and Children's Mercy Hospital, and we got a resounding affirmative. The police department and Children's Mercy have become our partners. Kids are curious. They like to explore, and they don't usually have any trouble finding a hidden gun. I suspect all of you know that from your own childhoods. Even if you don't think that they know that there's a gun in the house, there's a good chance they do, and they'll find it. Teenagers, they're impulsive. A gun in the house of a depressed, suicidal teenager can be deadly. Family members can get out of control. Again, access to a gun can be fatal. I participated in a Lock It for Love giveaway last week at the Ivanhoe Community Center at 38th and Woodland. And I was accompanied by a police officer whose office is right there in that community center. I learned much, mainly that this is good work for Grandparents Against Gun Violence. We should be doing this. Giving away gun locks makes a difference. This was a back-to-school event, so there were a lot of families, mostly moms with their children. And some of the moms came to my table really, really wanting a gun lock. You could tell it. They came right up to us. You could sense that they felt fear in their home because there was a gun, often owned by their husband or their boyfriend. They were nervous about their children gaining access to it. And the lock was actually an answer to their prayers. I'd been prepped, and I knew I shouldn't go up to someone and say, do you have a gun in your house, because it kind of shuts them down, but I did it the first couple of times, and of course most people said, no, I don't have a gun, because I think that's probably what I'd say too if I was asked. But if I went to them and said, would you like a free gun lock? Yes, they came forward. They wanted to know how to use it. They wanted to keep their children safe. And it was so nice having the police officer with me, because he could show them how to put the gun lock on the gun. And he would ask them what kind of gun they had. And often they didn't know what kind it was, but he could have them describe it to him, what kind of barrel it had and so forth. And then tell them how to put the lock on their particular gun. One woman looked at her 10-year-old and said, will you tell him what the gun looks like? Which scared me. And another one with her 4 children, she said, well, I keep the gun on the top shelf of the closet. And they all nodded. They knew where it was. So they took gun locks. And then another nice man I talked to for a long time, he said, no, he didn't need a gun lock. He wouldn't use a gun lock. And we talked and chatted, but as he walked, he said, oh, my 2-year-old, she grabbed the gun off the kitchen counter the other day. Oh, I hope I'm making the right decision. In this legislative climate, it's hard to see successes in the fight against gun violence. There are so many guns in homes. But at least we can encourage people to keep their guns locked and safe, and their children safer. The smart thing, the safe thing, is Lock It for Love. Thank you.
We will be singing during the offering today, but please stay seated so that the ushers can pass the baskets, and please join us in singing as the morning offering is now given and gratefully received.
We are building is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without peace, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without peace, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
Thank you. And please join me in the words of dedication for the offering. We dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to build a respectful, caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create a just and compassionate society.
Habits of highly effective congregations could well have been the title of this workshop. The Reverend Dr. Teresa Cooley presented an important and fascinating study of the characteristics of growing congregations based in part on national surveys of congregations by Faith Communities Today, FACT, as well as her own and others' research. Some of the attributes are obvious, but others are surprising, with important ramifications on how Unitarian Universalists minister to their communities. Reverend Cooley is the executive director of the Center for Courage and Renewal, founded by Palmer Parker. She has faithfully served our movement as the district executive of the Massachusetts Bay District. She was a parish minister for 15 years and became director of congregational life at the UUA in 2010, and she was program and strategy officer of the Unitarian Universalist Association from 2013 through 2016 when she resigned. She received her Master of Divinity from Harvard Divinity School and her Doctor of Ministry from Hartford Seminary. There is a basic assumption that growth is an indication that a congregation or church is effectively ministering to their community. Congregations do not grow because they need more pledging units. Growth occurs on a spiritual basis, not a practical one. Congregations grow because they believe in the mission of their congregation and of Unitarian Universalism. Personal growth leads to congregational growth, says Reverend Cooley. Congregations that establish a good balance between I, we, and a larger vision are the ones that grow. I honors the individual. We deals with how we stay connected in the face of challenges and conflicts. And the larger vision addresses the ministries that the congregation is dedicated to, issues that are larger than the congregation itself. Reverend Cooley asked, how does each of the groups within the congregation serve the larger mission? Who are you in your community? She continued, I have worked with congregations that spent enormous amounts of time and energy polling their congregation, but they never once looked at the surrounding communities. What does that say? It says, it's all about us. How do UUs compare with other denominations? Over the same time period, Presbyterians have declined 50.1%. Methodists declined 52%. United Church of Christ declined 60%, while evangelicals have grown by 50% or more. The most conservative churches are growing, and the most liberal churches are growing. Churches that try to please everyone are losing membership, says Reverend Cooley. Based on the results, one of the indicators of a dying congregation is that people identify themselves as a close family. People don't need a substitute family, said Reverend Cooley. A close family tends to exclude newcomers. The more allied with a denomination, the less likely they are to grow. They loosely affiliate, says Reverend Cooley. People don't care about denomination. They care about getting good programs and good preaching. Churches and congregations that are growing typically do not have the denomination as part of their name. What I think we need to take out of this is, what are we communicating to the public when we say Unitarian Universalist congregation of? Reverend Cooley asked, she answered her own question, saying, what that says is, we are this UU church that only serves this group. For example, Pathways or Church of the Living Spirit are great names. Anything that says to people what we are about that does not require insider information. Anything that does not require an assumption about what Unitarian Universalism is. Personal growth equals congregational growth. We're not talking about growth in numbers. We are talking about growth in spirit, growth in our souls, she said. It is not important that we grew 12.2%, but it is important that everyone who comes to our congregation finds a source of spiritual sustenance. When we do that, we will grow.
Is that me who's floating away, lifted up to the clouds by a dream? Never felt nothing like this.
Is that me? I don't recognize. Love's the one thing I knew all about. I had it all figured out.
But what about trust?
What about trust?
What about tenderness?
Tenderness. What about tears when I'm happy? What about wings when I'm not? I want you to be a story for me that I can believe in forever. So what about love? Will you be my light in the storm? Will I see a new world in your eyes? With you my whole spirit rise.
And what about hope?
What about hope?
What about joy?
What about joy? What about tears when I'm happy? What about wings when I'm not? I want you to be a story for me that I can believe in forever. And what about
ain't never preaching after that song again. God bless you. Thank you. You ain't right, Anthony. If you have your cell phones, don't turn them off. Turn them on. I'm not joking. Turn them on. And pull out the cameras and take pictures of me and these beautiful women and post it to Facebook. And take selfies. And tell folks that you're in worship having a good time this morning. The time for us to be quiet about who we are and where we come from is over. And if you need proof, look at the videos from Charlottesville. You can be very proud that yesterday, the ministers walking in counter-protest, there were so many yellows standing inside of Love, stoles and things on them. I thought, where are the rest of the ministers? And there's Cornel West in the middle of it. I know that Carlton Elliott Smith from the Southern Region staff was there. Your brand new president, Susan Frederick Gray, was there. Miss Rivera with the RE, and she's on the board, was there. Our pastor from the Richmond congregation, Gene Pupke, was there. What about love? What about it? And Joe, I'm not talking about that weak, mamby-pamby love. I'm talking about love that puts you in the street when somebody might come at you with a car. That's the kind of love we're talking about this morning. I knew that was going to happen. It's all right, I'll just preach 5 more minutes for every time my phone rings. This morning, if you're concerned about our growth, if you're concerned about how big our movement is, look around. That'll tell you how far our reach is. And then for those folks who are visiting with us online, thank you. Because now we have the internet. And this is 10 years after Reverend Dr. Cooley's research and her workshop. So we can get further than just the people sitting in the pews, but does it look like Kansas City? Our challenge is to see not how long you can talk about Unitarian Universalism, because that takes too long to say the 2 words anyway. Our challenge is that when you're at work, when you're with people who love you, that you talk about the personal change, the personal gratitude that you have for what has happened to you because you were at All Souls. You don't even have to explain it. All Souls, that's everybody. Y'all borrowed that from our Universalist friends. Y'all didn't know that, did you? Well, I'm going to make it that way. Because probably in 1850-something, they didn't expect a black gay man to be in this pulpit dressed in an Indian garb. And that 2 women who could sing like that sang before he got up, amen. But they did say that we believe in love so strong it doesn't leave anybody out. That's what they mean by all souls. Nobody left out. I'm doing something in Atlanta kind of crazy, but I was called to do it. while I was in seminary minding my own business. Leave it alone, Joe. I heard something say, there's a problem here, Duncan. In Atlanta, we have about 5 or 6 congregations. If Atlanta is a saucer with a line through the middle, the line through the middle is I-20. The folks who live south of that line look like me and the Clarks and my cousins. The folks above that line are actually pretty diverse. It's not just white folks. It's Indians, it's Mexicans, it's people of all sorts of descent who have come to Atlanta. But we say they're white. The further out you go from that line up, the richer it gets until you start getting too far. And we don't talk about poor white folks, so that's another sermon, but anyway. But all our congregations are north of that line. And something told me in seminary, we need a church below the line, Duncan. And I ignored it because we don't plant churches. We're Unitarian Universalist. Those who are called come to us. And I said, oh. And I went through our process and I started messing up in our process, y'all, to become a minister. And then I went to a church planting conference in Plano, Texas in August. Don't do it. I was there supporting a friend who's a church planter. We came out of the church planting workshop and I thought, oh, well, this is not that difficult. It's no more difficult than me going into our system and ending up in Bogota somewhere or wherever, or Illinois, where they ain't got no black people, ain't got no gay people, ain't got, no symphony, and I'm there. When I could go just 20 minutes south of my home where we don't have a congregation. And I got 30 years of work there. So called by the map and by logical stuff. And then once I started owning what I wanted to do, all of a sudden the process started to smooth out. Now our humanists in the room will go with me right up to there, and that's fine. But I think there was something bigger going on. And that I'm answering the call to fill a gap in our movement. How big do we want our movement to grow? What do you mean, Duncan? Everybody I like is in our churches. I want abundance to be a problem for us. I want us to be so big that the governments, the local and the state governments have to deal with Unitarian Universalists. That's how big I want us. I want us so big that we come in and we go, oh my goodness, I don't know none of these people. I ain't never sung this kind of music. I want us to have to minister to the people who have a problem with our abundance. That's how big I want us to be. I want us so big that when they think about doing an anti-racist march or a racist march, that somebody in the room goes, well, what about them Unitarians? They might show up. I only got 6 more pages. This growth thing is not a new problem. For my cousins and my play brothers here, this growth thing has been a problem for young religious communities for a long time. If you'll turn in your Bibles to Galatians, I know. Galatians, the 2nd chapter, the 11th through the 21st verse. Thank you, brother. you'll see that there's a problem between the people who are following Paul and the people who are following Peter. Peter's coming out of Jerusalem and makes his way to the new church in Galatia. It says, y'all not doing things right. Because we're Jewish and we do things like this. And we don't eat that and we don't do that. And y'all are doing all this stuff. And what has that got to do with this new faith that we're following behind Jesus? And y'all are messing up. And Paul said, wait a minute. He said, wait a minute. I'm preaching to these folks where they are. And maybe our new faith is about freedom, not laws. Y'all, maybe our liberal faith is about tears when I'm happy. About people who will love me when I have lost a job. When my family has lost a job. Jobs, when the factory is closed, when the mill is closed, when the mines closed years ago and are automated with robots and they're not going to reopen. And we have to have something to tell them. First, we can start with we love them. I didn't say like. You don't have to drink their light beer. But the little young lady, what's her name? Rose, beautiful Rose, said that we affirm and promote the inherent dignity of just NPR listeners. She said everybody, and then she lit the chalice. Y'all, there are folks even in my part of the world who don't know nothing about Kansas City. This is a flyover state. We can't treat people like they're flyovers. That's the growth I'm talking about. And not an elevator speech. If you have one, God bless you. I want to hear about what happened for you when you hurt like I hurt it. And who loved you through it. One more story and then I'll let you go to brunch. Reverend Marvin Labenhar in Tulsa, Oklahoma, if you haven't made it down there. Actually, Laverne's from Oklahoma, our family's from there. We're not from Tulsa, we're from Muskogee. But if you stop by the Tulsa church, you're gonna see a lot of diversity. But Reverend Labenhar was giving a talk in 2015 at our General Assembly. And he was in his office when an older white guy came in, self-confessed humanist. He sat down with him. He said, Reverend, I need to tell you something. He said, I was brought up Pentecostal. Amen, sing. He said, and sometimes when things get on my nerve, I speak in tongues. Huh. Why did he meet with the minister and tell him that? He's a self-confessed humanist, so his speaking in tongues is something left over, but it makes him feel comfortable. And why is he confessing this to Marvin Labenhar? At least a second generation UU. He wanted to find out if Reverend Labenhar could love him and find out that when he's in trouble, he speaks in tongues. As part of what makes him feel good. Is the door open for me still? The way Reverend Lavenhart ended the workshop was he said, we need to be the place where people can come out spiritually. Where I can come in and, yes, I have transcended some of the stuff I grew up in. Some of this Baptist I can't wash out, I've tried. But you gotta love that. If you say you love me. Because then I can stand on the line with you and do the hard work that we need to do to express the kind of love we need to do to change the world. And I'm not talking about way out yonder somewhere. My friends that I'm staying with, I want to make a public thank you to Reverend Patrick McLaughlin and his beautiful wife, Megan Carr. They're at the United Methodist Church down the road and downtown, where they're building that new sanctuary. And they took me way out to Olathe for brunch. I said, why are we going? I said, Duncan, keep it quiet, you know. You know what he told me? Because I had all that stuff in my head about Johnson County and all the folk out there. I know y'all got some Johnson County tags in here. He said, Duncan, one of the largest growing populations of poor people are in Olathe. More folks for us to love on. We don't want to operate under the mythology that everybody will work here. No, that's not going to happen. But we also want to counter the mythology that it only can be this little narrow group of people who will somehow find us. There are folks waiting to find us in pain and agony. They've been waiting to hear about how you survived because you joined All Souls. They've been waiting to hear about abundant love in the other part of Atlanta with a minister that looks like the community. Waiting to hear about our transformation and about how I was healed when I stumbled into this liberal faith. So big that our movement shifts culture just by the power of our abundant love. That you can rely on. That I can sell. Thank you so much for letting me come while your minister's taking a break. Thank you so much for helping us. I ain't never gonna forget you rearing back on What About Love. Thank you so much.
Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place if you can. Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place. If you can, just try. Take a little time out of your busy day and give encouragement to someone who's lost their way. Or would I be talking to stones if I asked you to share a problem that's not your own? We can change things if we start giving. So why don't you reach out and touch somebody's hand? Make this world a better place. If you can, reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place. If you can, just try. If you see an old friend on the street who's down, remember that his shoes could fit your feet. Try a little kindness and you'll see it's something that comes very naturally. We can change things if we start giving. Why don't you reach out and touch somebody's hand? Make this world a better place. Everybody reaching out and touch. Come on and hold somebody's hand. Hold across the aisles. Come on, let's seal it up. Yeah. Reach out. Reach out and touch. Come on, seal it up. Reach out and touch. We can make it a better place if we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place. Yeah, if you can. Yeah.
According to Sammy Davis Jr., you always have two choices: your commitment versus your fear. May we always choose wisely. Have a wonderful week, and thank you so much for coming. Amen.